I would share it, but today I'm yelling. Look inside of my soul and you can find gold and maybe get rich. Look inside of your soul and you can find out it never exists.
I always think that you should start with the problem that you're trying to solve in the world and not start with deciding that you want to build a company, right? I mean, the best companies that get built are things that are trying to drive some kind of social change, even if it's just local in one place, more than starting out because you want to make a bunch of money or have a lot of people working for you or build some company in some way. So, I always think that this is kind of a perverse thing about Silicon Valley in a way, which is that, people decide often that they want to start a company before they even decide what they want to do. And that just feels really backwards to me. And, for anyone who's had the experience of actually building a company, you know that you go through some really hard things along the way. And I think part of what gets you through that is believing in what you're doing and knowing that what you're doing is really delivering a lot of value for people. And that's, I think, how the best companies end up getting made. I always think that the most important thing that entrepreneurs should do is pick something they care about, work on it, but don't actually commit to turning it into a company until it's working. And I think that if you look at the data of like the very best companies that have gotten built, I actually think a tremendous % of them have been built that way and not from people who decided up front that they wanted to start a company.
I actually think determination is probably the biggest piece. It's so many things go wrong when you're starting a company, and often I think people ask, what mistakes should you avoid making? And my answer to that question is don't even bother trying to avoid mistakes because you're going to make tons of mistakes, right? And the important thing is actually learning quickly from whatever mistakes you make and not giving up. Right, and I mean, there are things every single year of Facebook's existence that could have killed us or made it so that it just seemed like moving forward and making a lot of progress just seemed intractable, but you just kind of bounce back and you learn, and nothing is impossible. You just have to kind of keep running through the walls. In terms of hiring, everyone says hire good people, right? No one wants to hire like a reasonable person. You want to hire like a really good person. But then the question is, what's the right heuristic for determining if someone's really good? So over time, what I figured out was that the only actual way to let someone analyze whether someone was really good was if they would work for that person. So I don't think that needs to recurse too many levels down in the organization, but I basically think that that's a really good heuristic, right? And I believe that. I mean, if you look at my management team today, I mean, if we were in an alternate universe and I hadn't started the company, it would be an honor to work for any of these people. And I think if you build a company that has kind of those values, rather than just saying, oh, I want to hire the best person I can find or whatever, if you hold yourself to that standard, then I think you'll build a pretty strong company.
I think the key is building a company which is focused on learning as quickly as possible, right? Companies are learning organisms, and you can make decisions that either make it so that you learn faster or you learn slower. And, in a lot of ways, building a company is like following the scientific method, right? You try a bunch of different hypotheses, and if you set up the experiments well, then you kind of learn what to do. And I think that's an important philosophy. So there are all these different decisions that we make inside the company, everything down to really empowering individual engineers. We invest in this huge testing framework, right? At any given point in time, there's not just one version of Facebook running in the world, right? There's probably tens of thousands of versions running because engineers here have the power to try out an idea and ship it to maybe 10,000 people or 100,000 people. And then they get a readout on how that version of what they did, whether it was a change to show better content in newsfeed or UI change or some new feature, they get a readout on how that version performed compared to the baseline version of Facebook that we have on everything that we care about, how connected people are, how much people are sharing and how much they say that they're finding meaningful content, business metrics like how much revenue we make and engagement of the overall community. And by running tens of thousands of different experiments and putting the power in people's hands to try all these different things, you can imagine we just make so much more progress than we could if every change had to be approved by me, right? Or every idea had to come from management. So I do think that there's something very deep about building this, learning culture and moving quickly towards that just helps you get ahead over time. I think when things are working well, you use data and you use the qualitative feedback that you're getting from listening to how your community is using your product to tell you what problems to go solve. And then you basically use intuition to figure out what the solutions to those problems might be. And then you test those hypotheses by rolling them out and getting more data and feedback on that. And then that gives you a sense of where to go.
As the complexity of the company grows, every day you're going to be faced with 100 things that you could potentially go do. And your job is to pick the one thing that actually matters. Because out of those 100 things, it's really only actually going to be 1 or 2 things that actually matter.